Hi there, YouTube. I'm working on some more odds and ends on my Cockshutt 40 tractor restoration project. What I'm working on today is I guess you can call it the core support or the radiator support for the radiator proper, the copper brass portion of it. This is like the steel framework that gets soldered on all around it and kind of encases it as one unit. And this tractor, it also acts, it's got bolt holes on the side. It also acts as the hood support. So the hood just basically bolts onto this. This is like I'd say it's the primary support for the hood, or at least the front cowl, whatever you want to call it. But it's old and it's got a lot of cancer on it. So I had to, I guess, heat it up and detach it from the radiator, so that way the tanks could get removed and get the top tanks and the core separated, because the core is pretty much garbage and that's getting resourced. But when I took this apart, there's a couple of pieces. I was actually surprised. This thing's in better shape than I thought it would be, but there's a couple of pieces on here that are kind of cancerous that have to get replaced. Luckily, it's made out of this space age material called steel, and it's readily available and pretty easy to work with. I've got this kind of bottom support. I gotta pattern that off and make a new piece for that, but kind of started on this side. There's a couple of little ears. This would face forward. There's a couple of little ears that come down, and those get sweat to the bottom tank. So if you can imagine in space here, the bottom tank kind of would live in that area right there. And so it's like 1, 2, 3 little sweat beads right there on both the front and the back. And then this little tab comes around and gets sweat to the bottom of that tank also. So it kind of squares everything up. So that was rotted out on both sides. This side worse than the other. This one's actually got, you can see it's got quite a bit of garbage living in there, and there's actually a tab that comes down and wraps around the bottom of the tank also that's missing. So on this one, it's still intact and has some structure to it. That one survived. This one might have had a leak on it or something, or would have collected more moisture or something, because that's pretty much all rotted off till right about here. So I've got started making up some little patch panels. Luckily, the one side was in good enough shape I could pattern it. Get a very, so I can get the information off of it. So it's a pretty simple part, right? It's like kind of like a little heel or knee or whatever you want to call it, shaped, and it's got a small joggle on the bottom. Pretty easy to make. So I took that, make a pattern, transfer your pattern over to some steel. I think on this one I was using 19 gauge. So it's actually pretty thick. Luckily, it's pretty thick, which is also a benefit. Transfer it over to steel, cut it out on my handy dandy saw, and then come over here and do a little bit of bending, manual bending on the bench. I've got, I don't know, this might be like one of those Eastwood deals. It's good for like low gauge stuff, right? So it's got your V block side and your bending side. So I get it started with that, and then you just put your piece in the piece of angle there. Let's see here. Right, once you get the bend started, initiated, you can just throw that guy into your angle. Get a piece of rod with the right radius on it. Throw that in your vise. Bob's your uncle. And then you get that, right? And then for the joggle, it's pretty easy. I just hook this up to the edge of my steel table here, and then figure out where I want that joggle, clamp it in, and then you can just beat the F out of it until you get that little feature in there, which gives it a whole lot of stiffness. So that's pretty much it. I just TIG welded these in. It's 19 gauge, so I can just drop the amps and go really slow, skip around. Makes a really short work of it and grinds up real nice. So I'm gonna get to cutting out the other, laying out this one and cut out the cancer piece and start stitching in the new piece, and then I'm gonna pattern this guy up and get that set in there. So hopefully I can get this thing probably sandblasted. I don't think I want to do any more wire wheel work. But take this, maybe take it outside, get it sandblasted, get it down to pure bare metal, and then prime it and put a coat of paint on it. So at least that way it's not going to rust again. And then that way it's ready to rock when I get my core back and assembled. I can just slip this sucker on and sweat it all back together. It does have some other pieces here too. It's got a fan shroud and stuff, but that, again, that's all. That would be like the last part that goes together. But I think that's pretty much it. Those are the only features on this that were really in bad shape. The top side of this is actually pristine. This bottom bar, the actual core support proper, this is where like the little rubber pads go. This thing was made out of some pretty thick material. I think it's like, that might be 16th, oh, that might be just shy of 1/8 of an inch thick. So it's pretty stout, so I don't, you know, it didn't get too corroded or rusted out there. Yeah, so everything else looks pretty good. Probably run some taps through these little rib nuts on the side because those are pretty rusted out. And chase those threads, make those nice and clean again. But yeah, another day, another project. I'll keep at it and I'll keep you updated, folks. Talk to you later.